Welcome, everyone, to the music education panel discussion for the Mockingbird Sessions. My name is Andrew Hitz, and I am on the board of directors of the Mockingbird Foundation. And I am joined by an unbelievable panel here that I have put together, which I'm going to introduce in just a second. If you happen to be here because you know one of these amazing musicians but are not familiar with the Mockingbird Foundation, we are a nonprofit who has over the last 25 years, this is our 25th anniversary celebration, we have awarded about $1.8 million in grants in all 50 states in support of children having music education opportunities. But I am joined by five really, really great musicians who I have the privilege of knowing and of working with all of them in different capacities over the years. I'm going to go around the horn on my screen. I have no idea what it's going to look like on anyone else's screen. First up is Joseph Alessi, who is the principal trombone of the New York Philharmonic. I grew up, and Joe was one of my heroes growing up, which is just me very, very politely pointing out that he's significantly older than I am. But no, he's considered by many to be the greatest trombone player alive, and it is great to have you here, Joe. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And then underneath Joe, we've got Zack Brock of Snarky Puppy. And I did not grow up idolizing Zack because he was just one of my college knucklehead friends who ended up becoming famous. But we kind of had a feeling that was going to happen because he was a freak in college, and he still is. So Zack, it's great to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah. And also, there's a lot of Phish fans are going to be listening to this and watching this. Everyone should know that I rode in Zack Brock's car to get to the Mud Island Tweezer. So that I'm like forever. I should put him in my will for that. Actually, we drove that poor Honda Accord into the ground. So yeah, that was done by the time we got done with it. All right, below that is Dr. Michael W. Nickens, who is so both Michael and Chanell, as you're about to hear, they both have a lot of titles, like in a good way. It's like you kind of like, do I say all of it? How much time do we have? But Doc Nix, he also goes by, he's even got like multiple names. It's very confusing. But Michael is a composer. He is a conductor. He's a band leader. He's an arranger. He's a tuba player. He's a community organizer. He wears a lot of hats, and he wears them all really well. Michael, it's great to have you.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me on this. This is really exciting.
It's the first time I've ever called you Michael. Was that as awkward
on
your end?
Yeah. Yes. Good to see you, Andrew.
He's Mike to me, and I just called him Michael. So maybe I'll call him Zachary too, just to make things super awkward. Next up is Chanell Chrichlow, who is out in Los Angeles. She is a songwriter. She's a band leader. She's an entrepreneur. She's a tuba player. She's a badass flugelhorn player. I'm missing some stuff. You rap, you do, did I say produce? There's enough that I'm repeating myself and I'm not even noticing, but Chanell, it's awesome to have you.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here. Hey, everybody.
And last but not least is probably the person who needs the least introduction, at least in terms of the Phish fans that are going to be watching this. And his name is Don Hart. Don, how are you?
Doing fine, Andrew. Thank you.
And yeah, of course, Don is a composer and an arranger and a teacher out of Nashville, and he has been collaborating with Trey Anastasio for years. And actually, before we get to the actual music education part, I need to point out that Joe Alessi got me and a friend of mine into the dress rehearsal for Trey Anastasio at Carnegie Hall, which is when I met Don, because Don had a score. So I sat behind him creeper style and chatted him up. And then we became really good friends. And then that led to me talking to Trey and getting him to play the second Jam and Mike song again for the first time in 15 years. So Joe Alessi was indirectly responsible for bringing back the second Jam and Mike song, which means nothing to Joe, but that really impresses a lot of very nerdy people like me. So Joe, thank you.
I think really you should thank yourself because you were begging me.
I
You wouldn't leave me alone.
I wouldn't leave you alone. I begged him, and then I bothered Don, and then I bothered Trey. I have no problem bothering people, so which is very on brand for 2021. But anyway, moving right along. So we are here to talk about music education, and everyone on this panel teaches in various capacities. Some at the collegiate level, some. Just lots of different levels, but all of us were deeply impacted by music education, which is and music educators, which is of course the whole reason that the Mockingbird Foundation exists, is so that we can give those opportunities to more and more people. And so we're going to start with Joe, because actually Joe is on the road and was very, very kind to fit this in. He's going to have to peace out at some point, which you can just kind of do that, no worries. But we're going to start with Joe. Is there a music educator from your past who had a big impact on you as a person or as a musician?
Yes, I think there were several, but the first one was my father, because he taught me from the beginning. And after that, I would say my band director, who was very dedicated to his students, Gordon Lowe, who has passed away. And then after that, my teachers at Curtis Institute, Glenn Dodson and Dee Stewart. And anyway, all these educators molded everything I do today. So, and without them, I don't know where I would be, but they shaped my vision about music. And my father was also very charitable about giving lessons himself. And Wynton Marsalis asked him if he would teach an underprivileged trumpet student, and my dad went ahead and gave him free lessons. And I actually did that myself with the very famous trombonist Jim Markey. And Jim came over to my house, and I gave him free lessons.
Well, he turned out okay.
Yeah, he sure did.
He's one of the best, classical orchestral trombone players like Joe. They're on the same tier. There's not a lot of room on that tier. They're both on that tier. So, that's really great. Zach, how about you? What was there a music educator or music educators that made a big difference in your life?
Definitely. Like Joe, it kind of goes back to my family. My grandfather was also a trombone player, and he was a band director. My mom also became a music educator and was teaching in the public schools in Lexington for a while. And I think like all violinists, because we start so young, it's like sort of there's a blurred line between the music educators and just our family and our teachers at a certain point. But I for sure would not be talking to you right now. I wouldn't even probably be alive were it not for Dr. Myron Cartman at Northwestern, who taught me so much about music and about life, but really taught me how he taught me the joy of deepening my musical experience and my knowledge, and he made me almost fanatical about it, and I have him to thank for that, for sure.
Wow, how did he do that? That's a pretty big gift.
Yeah, he's a big personality. I think probably a lot of us here have been, we've had these people come through our lives. Some of them are more low key. Dr. Myron Cartman was not really low key. So, I mean, how did he do it? I mean, there's no way I don't want to take up all the time, but there was an aesthetic, there was a sort of unspoken learning to savor certain aesthetics of music, and then the joy of solving the technical problems to to be able to craft those things and make those decisions yourself. And it just became, much more interesting than just picking up your axe and sawing away.
Those are the skills that translate to everything in life too. That's that's really great. That's good teaching. That's the stuff that I resonated with as a kid and still to this day. That's awesome. How about you, Dr. Nickens?
This would be a real great time to honor the late Toby Hanks, who, man, one of the main things he said to me, I stayed with him 5 years, 3 years at Manhattan and 2 years at Yale. One of the things that he said to me that's really stuck with me was, I don't know what you're going to do, but I know you're going to be successful at it. And thinking back to the way I pick my own repertoire in many ways, coupled with things that he'd lay out for me and we'd work together on, the way he allowed me to put my own compositions on my recitals, even if they weren't for tuba, which was just a nice, fresh and wonderful way to make room for a young composer. And then, just like even getting to Yale, I had been out of school for a year and I was stringing together some gigs and stringing together some teaching. And then he came down to DC to do a concert, and I was literally just bringing him a mouthpiece back that I had of his. And he asked me what I was doing, and I was trying to explain it to him. And he's like, well, why are you doing all that? And I'm like, well, I'm trying to get some money together so I can go to grad school. And then I just kind of chipped away. I was like, hey, what's going on at Yale? And he's like, you want to go to Yale? And then within like 48 hours, it was set up and I was going to go, and it worked out great. But it was that main thing of him just sort of not worrying too much about what the destination was going to be, because we were so enjoying just our process together and exploration. And of course, with some of the projects he was involved in, he was not shy of going in some direction that was, just his, and then, but the way that connected me with Manhattan and Yale, I mean, besides just his lessons, giving me access to amazing teachers and ensembles and, just the resources and the locations. He took a chance on me, and I'll definitely say it paid off. For me, I hope it honors him, as well. But for me, it got me where I'm going, and I'm able to do the things that I dreamed of being, and even some of the responsible adult things I'm supposed to do.
Well, let's not exaggerate, Michael. That's awesome. What a gift for that's one of the cool things about music and about the arts, is that the best teachers from elementary school or even earlier with string piano, they can start like crazy early, or just kids singing all the way up through graduate school at Yale. It's like you can really teach. You can allow people to be themselves, and there's just like this giant hoop that you get to jump through. At least with the good teachers, which is that's awesome. All right, how about you, Chanell?
Yeah, it's crazy hearing Michael talk about Toby, because I studied with Toby as well. But I'll just go back to my middle school teacher, Mr. Pitt, out here in New York City school system. And it was one of those things where I didn't know what a tuba was before I saw it in middle school. And he was one of the first teachers to really look at me and say, yo, I think this person has potential. And I think that is as much teaching as it is showing someone how to buzz on a mouthpieces, giving them the attention and hope and belief that they can do something with themselves, with their body, or with their mind. And so I'm gonna give it to him for just opening up my eyes to music in that kind of way. But I have a lot of people, Toby Hanks, who I spent 4 years with at MSM, and Then Velvet Brown. I learned a lot from Velvet by just listening to her before I even studied with her. And then people like, Bob Stewart and Howard Johnson, who their gems were just talking. There was no plan, just sitting down talking. And I learned a lot of life lessons, and I learned how to be, to be a chameleon in some ways, because I think as a low brass player, as a tuba player, you really have to find work for yourself and create your own work. And that's probably one of the most important lessons I would learn from Bob and from Howard.
That's great. There are a number of people I bet who are going to be watching this who don't know those names, but I bet just about everybody has seen The Last Waltz, and Howard Johnson, who Chanell just mentioned, is the tuba player. And you want to get blown away, search Howard Johnson on Wikipedia and see the list of people, and Bob Stewart too. I mean, but Howard, we just lost recently, as with Toby, the list of people that he played with is stunning. All right, Don Hart.
Yeah, I just wanted to. One thing I noticed, if it wasn't said outright, but I think it was at least implied, that I think all these teachers that everybody has mentioned instilled a love of music in their student, in them, and in all their students. And once you have that established, then you're prepared to take further instruction and run with it, and you see the results. That for me, that happened early on in my family. Like Joe mentioned, my dad had the classical music station on all the time, and we were listening to music, and it was reinforced at church, and then when I got to grade school, we had this teacher that I was lucky enough to have both the 3rd and 6th grade, and she did all the musicals, played piano, and I had 2 years of her playing the piano for us, and us just having a really nice general music situation, where I think a lot of kids don't really have that, and it just opens your mind up to so many possibilities. And again, it helped instill that love of music. And I don't know, that's a start. And there's a lot of other people throughout my life that I'm eternally grateful to as well.
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to answer this one too. My first band director, whose name was Bob Mealy, who actually became Dr. Bob Mealy after. It's funny, I didn't realize that my first year in elementary school band was his second year out of undergrad, which to me, at that age is like, it's binary, right? You're an adult or you're not an adult. And he was barely an adult, but I didn't know that at the time. He gave me, I caught on like really, really, really quickly, like, the exact opposite of my experience with basically everything else in life until then. And I started taking private lessons from him right away. And it was like, I don't know, maybe the next year. So he's not getting paid that much. He's got no nest egg. He's young. Like, it was maybe a year and a half in when he said to my parents, he was a trumpet player and he was a great teacher, but he told them, he said, your son needs to be studying with a low brass player because I've taught him like as much as I can right now. And so he was handing off like income, which I'm sure was meaningful. I then got handed off to a guy named Peter Sorelli, who was a trombone player. I studied with him for 1 year. And at the end of, this was not, he and Mr. Mealy did not communicate at all. He said at the end of a year, he said to my parents, your son needs to be studying with a tuba player. Like he handed me off. I mean, it's just like, just completely, I mean, and he was the assistant jazz band director, at the high school. But yeah, again, both of them giving up money. And also, I was a dedicated student. Those are the fun kind to teach, right? So like I was dedicated. I mean, probably some weeks more than others, but like overall, I was a good student to teach. And I'm like, my parents are giving them money every week. And I was just like, my path is just littered with people who were like putting my needs, not first, as like that was it, and which is just so lucky. And then, of course, I met Sam Palafian, who also, we've been losing a lot of great musicians of late. It feels like, but Sam also, just like, like always. I mean, the number of opportunities that he gave to me is just like, can't even begin to put into words. But I just feel so incredibly lucky. And the other thing, which I can kind of segue into this, but the other thing that I feel incredibly lucky is that I grew up in a town where the band program, there was a tuba for me to use at the elementary school, and it worked. And like the valves worked great. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. And there was like a mouthpiece, and like, it was like I had so many resources at my disposal, which is, the number of grant applications that we get for the Mockingbird Foundation can be really overwhelming. The number of places some that have instruments and need money to be able to just like repair them. It's like we've got, like 8 xylophones, that we use but like 3 of them are falling apart. Like one of them I bring I bring into school every day to like use my personal one. I mean, it's like these, it can be kind of heartbreaking, but I just happened, through nothing I earned, just to be in a place where the band room had working instruments and had a teacher who knew how to use them, and and taught me, as you all said, the love of music, which I'm forever grateful for all of that. So, and sadly, Dr. Mealy passed away way too young, just a few years ago as well. So a lot of, I'm getting to that age where like people are starting to disappear, which is like, it's rough. Not to make it about me, but it's just kind of like rite of passage, right? Where it's like not the good kind either. So, let's, before that gets like dark and depressing, let's swing back to Joe Alessi. What lessons did you learn from studying music as a child? It could be musical or just about life in general.
Yeah, and go and fire away after that, the final question, because I'll probably have to leave, unfortunately. What an interesting conversation to hear everybody talk about this. I'd just like to say one other thing about my father.
Please.
Because he left the Metropolitan Opera and a big career in New York to teach out in California, and he became a junior high band director and a junior college band director, and he gave up this big career to be an educator, and so he, at City College of San Francisco was kind of a rough school, and even he was teaching his theory class one day, and to show you how you have to you have to be ready for anything when you're an educator. So he was teaching this theory class, and he felt something cold on his neck, and it was a student who was upset and had a gun to his neck, believe it or not, and say, hey, what's going on? And he said, well, Mr. Alessi, you gave me an F in theory class, and he said, listen, I'd be happy to change your grade, right now. And anyway, but just when you're in the trenches as an educator, you have to deal with all kinds of different things, and luckily he survived to tell that story. And but also I just want to say about Glenn Dodson. In my lesson, he said, would you be interested in playing in the Philadelphia Orchestra next year, and for a year? So something like that, you don't expect anything like that. And I have to thank him immensely. I would like to, Glenn for me was like Sam for you. Mm-hmm. And I think about my father and Glenn Dodson all the time. And I wish I could pick up the phone and call these people and just thank them, for setting me straight and helping me along the way. But yes, what was the next question?
What lessons did you learn, either musical or life in general, as the result of studying music when you were a kid?
Well, my father, I keep coming back to him, but musically, he taught me never to rush as a music student. Okay, I know that's about music, but when he taught you rhythm, it was very clear how he taught it to me. You know, 1, 2, and 3, 4. Never to rush. And if you rushed, you heard about it. So he was a bit old school that way. Um, but he taught me how to practice. He taught me what practicing was about, how to structure your practicing as a student. He knew all the meat and potatoes types of exercises and books that were taught to him. So tradition is huge when it comes to teaching, and he just passed that along to me, and I pass that along to my students as well. So fundamentals, of course, but being prepared, is very important, and knowing, also telling me or informing me, hey, you can practice too much, as a student, and
Yeah.
that was as a brass player, you have to know when to stop. And he called me Joey. Said, and he had a Brooklyn accent. He said, "Hey, Joey, don't you think you practiced enough today?" And so things like that, which are important, and so yes, those were the terrific things about him.
That's awesome. Sometime when I'm feeling brave, I'm going to call you Joey. It's not tonight, but it's going to happen. So, well, Joseph, Dr. Alessi, I just gave you an honorary doctorate. I know you got to run, but thank you so much for the time tonight.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
and I deep respect to all my friends on the panel here, and I wish you all the best, and hope to see you soon, Andrew.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, take care.
All right. Yep. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's mix up the order here a little bit. Not to put you on the spot, let's go to Chanell to answer this next, just so it's not like the same around the horn like 4 times.
Yeah. I guess for me, I think one of the things that I learned that was most impactful to me is storytelling, like stories, like putting stories onto like bordonis, just as a way to ask myself what it's trying to express. And I think as like a 15-year-old kid, I thought that was a real pivotal time to kind of explore that. Not only using the guidance of the teacher to help me on phrasing or whatever it is, but to kind of put it on me to understand, make up anything, that I feel this piece is trying to tell me. And I think, you could use that like later down in life, but it also kind of gave me the perspective of that musicality for me was starting to become my strong suit through storytelling, through, imagination. And I thought like that was really cool. I thought that was one of the coolest points for me. I remember the first time listening to like Mahler, I forget which one, but I remember thinking it was awful, not awfully written, just I remember thinking that I'd never heard anything like that. Um, it seemed a little bit menacing, but once I was able to put a story on it, it kind of felt a little bit more comfortable. I could kind of see the composer's what I thought maybe that he was saying a little bit clearer. So I thought the idea of storytelling was, in terms of like how to like be a musical person, was one of the more interesting things I learned. Perspectives as a young kid.
Oh, that's great. And like so much of life is storytelling, right? Like parenting, as you know, is storytelling. I mean, getting kids to try food is storytelling. Networking is storytelling. I mean, everything. Like, yeah, that's really valuable.
Shout out to Jennifer Rain. Jennifer Rain taught me that. Shout out to her.
Awesome. Let's see here. How about Don Hart? You're still muted,
Okay.
Don. There you go.
I was looking for the button.
All good.
Well, as an arranger and composer, I think whether I knew it or not, I was learning how to listen analytically. I remember the first time I was in a children's choir, I think in second grade, and I sang, I was selected to sing the harmony part. And I remember the first time singing harmony note was just exhilarating. It just was like a double take on it. And I think those sorts of things also at home, again, like listening to all the classical music, that was sinking in. And I've gone back and listened to things that I hadn't listened to in years, and I hear them differently these days, that was just one of the things I think, thinking back about it, I think that's one. Also, another big thing was just being prepared. If you show up and you're supposed to be able to play or sing something and you can't,
yeah,
it's all over.
Yeah, that's great. All right, Dr. Nickens.
And I'll piggyback on that one because I was thinking about it. It's a similar story with my high school choir director who gave me a solo, and I was supposed to meet with him after school, and I didn't end up meeting with him after school, and it was harsh at the time. And he said, if you fall on your face, it's all on you, because I didn't take the time to meet with him, and I could not get through it. I started singing. I did not know the lyrics, and it totally happened. And just recognizing that, he gave me every opportunity to get the help, and I didn't accept it, and it was on me. But that's not what I was going to bring up. What I was going to bring up,
nightmare material.
I'm saying, totally. But also pointing out that I had the power. If I plan in advance, I got the power to avoid it. So two quick ones on others from that same high school. I wrote all the music for Merry Wives of Windsor. I got to sit in the pit with my synthesizer and my tuba and a couple percussion instruments, and I just composed this like scene change music and overture and whatever.
Awesome.
But I came to like the tech week and I wasn't ready on any of it. I didn't know what to do. They asked me to do this. I had no experience really, and Robin Bennett was the drama teacher, and she just I played her a couple things that I was thinking of, and she didn't have any patience for it because they were so low intention. And she goes, "You got 15 minutes until we run the scene, so have something in 15 minutes." And it all just fell out of me, and is what we ended up using. And it was just like something about that pressure, like two stories of pressure, one where I crumbled and the other where I flew, right? And it's like I needed to find the cipher. I needed to find the access point. And in this case, it was trying to get at, those kinds of things we say to ourselves. Well, is it a love song or a pirate song? And then you kind of move into it from that. In this case, I had some lyrics, and it's like, well, what do these lyrics feel like? And what kind of song is it? Is there a dance to it? Can we use that dance in the overture? And then there's where it went. That's exactly what happened. And then the second thing I was going to say on the same one, another high school story, with my marching band. Because after I did a summer tour with the cadets of Bergen County, called the Cadets now, came back to my high school as a drum major, and of course now I know everything about marching, and I'm going to be the one that saves our marching band, right? And Steve Rice, my band director, it was his first year at West Potomac. He's been there ever since. That was a minute ago when he started. But he was watching me take away opportunities from the other student leaders because I wanted to do everything myself. And just the thought of like, be generous and let other people have a shot, but also leverage that you have a team here, and you can't do it all yourself. There'll be no team, and there's too much to do. And all of that came from this one little thing about trying to teach some freshmen how to march 8 to 5 or something just something simple like that, and let the section leader just do it and don't get in the way of it. So in one is like the duality there is, on the one case, it's like when you're there and the pressure's on you, you will be able to show up and do something. You got to let it find that inspirational thing, and it gives you access, and let it flow. And then the other one is let other people have that same opportunity and get out of their way, and then you can really build community because you allowed everyone a shot at being in the driver's seat.
Wow, that's great teaching. I did not know that Steve Rice was your band director.
I was his first drum major at West Potomac.
Wow, there you have it. All right, Zach.
Yeah. Wow. Everything that everybody is saying is, yeah, it's tripping, certain switches in my brain. I'm like, oh yeah, that too. Yeah, that. So I feel like just telling a story along the lines of what everybody's told, but
you could just be Flavor Flav for the call and just,
yeah, exactly.
Scream, yeah.
Yeah.
That's usually my job.
Something that Chanell said back in the first question resonated, and I think it's, I'll use that for this story. So moving away from my college teacher, and kind of like you too, Hitz, Andrew. I went through a certain period of not a lot, but shifting teachers and stuff like that. When I first started as a kid, like a 4-year-old kid or something, I had the same teacher until I was, I don't know, 10 or 11 or something like that. And then I started studying with a friend of the family who was in the Philharmonic where I grew up. And by the time I got to 10th grade, that was kind of when I was starting to actually get, serious about playing, the violin, maybe in college, maybe, I don't know. I didn't really have a plan. I didn't have a life plan. And, but he wanted me to study with this guy who's a great violinist from New York, who had been the concertmaster of the Louisville Symphony, a guy named Peter McHugh. And Peter was a great teacher, and he was coming down to Lexington where I lived and teaching some. And so I started studying with him, I think as a junior in high school. And so now to the point of my story, which is what he taught me. And I think that, great teachers have such a profound impact on a kid, a child, of that age. It's really, even if there are, even if you come from an ideal situation where your parents are supporting your music and, trying to help you in every way, there are stumbling blocks for some of us that pop up along the way. Now, for me, it was that, well, I didn't know, I hadn't studied enough of the romantic concertos, and with violinists, there's a huge amount of repertoire, and it can be this very sort of like, well, then you do this and you must do this before you pass on to this, and don't even dare think about that until you cross this threshold, and all that. And so my first lesson with Peter McHugh, he just said, what do you want to play? And I said, oh, I don't know. I just, I just played the Bruch concerto, and I don't know, maybe. And he's like, no, what do you want to play? Like, what's your favorite piece? And I was like, the Bach Chaconne. But I was thinking like, oh, no, not until I'm 21 years old am I going to, just like whatever, I was setting up barriers, that I was already inventing at the tender age of, 15 or whatever. I was already putting up stumbling blocks for myself. It took a teacher like Peter McHugh to just gleefully rip them apart. Just be like, God, all that's crap. It's like, you can play anything you want. You can play anything you want. It doesn't mean that you're going to play it the best that you're ever going to play it right now, but you can definitely start playing it right now. And so get the Bach, get the sonatas and partitas, and I'll see you next Wednesday, and we're going to start on this one. And, or no, I started right on the Chaconne. What am I saying? Like, we actually started on the Chaconne and then like worked our way back in that partita. So that just had this, the effect that had on me was really emboldening me in my musical choices, which I think definitely popped up later in other ways, because my job now is not, I don't go out into the world and play the Bach chaconne for people, but it was that same kind of intention. It was the same kind of inner trust that you have to make bold decisions, about following your fascination in music. And he gave that to me as a lesson that's just very, very easy to remember. I'll never forget it, and it stayed with me. It doesn't even feel diminished. I'm sure that you all have these, we've all had these. It's like one of these peak experiences, right? Where like when you start talking about it or thinking about it, it's as strong feeling as it was the moment it happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my story.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Don.
Yeah, can I just kind of piggyback on what
Please.
Zach said? This wasn't my teacher. It was actually a friend of mine who taught my two children piano during their high school years. And the thing that she did with each of them, and right out of the gate, is she, found out what they were playing, and talked to them a little bit, and picked a piece of music that they loved right out of the gate when they started studying with her. And again, it kind of goes back to, instilling a love for music. But, it got them excited, it just sent them off on their way. So it was just reminded me of that.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. That's something that I actually kind of took for granted, Zach, and you just kind of made me appreciate it, is that, how many hours, Zach, did you and I spend in a practice room, like late at night, when we were relaxed and the lights were out and we were just playing like what the hell ever, right? Just completely improvising on just whatever fell out of your violin or my tuba or Russell's horn or, Ben's euphonium, whatever, right? But I had teachers who encouraged me to play whatever the hell I wanted to. And I just never really thought about it, because like my instrument, the tuba, the tradition is not nearly as like strong and rigid as violin. Violin, there's like, if you're not a part of that world, it's like you would find it hard to believe like how rigid, like here is the map and you are going to follow the map. Here is the route. I have highlighted it. And if you deviate at all, not everyone's like that, but that's very real. And of course I gravitated towards the people because of my teachers like you, who was just like, what do we want to play? I don't know. Let's just play. Great. Let's make some sounds together. And some of it wasn't that good. And some of it was like, we were like, we get done. We're like, well, okay, that was great. And we had some people who listened who would, confirm. So in terms of what I learned, as a kid, one memory is coming up, very strongly, which is that when I was in the 7th grade, and Mr. Mealy said that he wanted to have us do a brass quintet. He was like looking to give me some challenges, because there's the tuba parts in a middle school band are not that challenging. Doesn't matter how good the band is, and he played along with us because the trumpets weren't the strongest group in the, weren't the strongest section in the group, but he like played along with one of the parts. So there was actually 6 of us, but it was 5 students and him. And we sat down for rehearsal and we played, we read this, very simple piece, but we read it together. And then we all stopped and then we all turned to Mr. Mealy. And he was in a loving and supportive way. He's like, this is your band. Like, you decide. Like, I'm not, because conductors, in general, especially a middle school band, it's not a democracy, right? That would the kind of the, it's not even a representative democracy. It's just kind of the band director needs to tell you, okay, we're going to start here. We're going to do this, we're going to try this louder, this shorter, this whatever. But this was, chamber music where it was like, he was like, try it, right? It's like the difference between being a cook and being a chef, right? A cook is like you follow a recipe, which that's not easy. And there's an art form to that. And you go to a Waffle House and somebody who nails every order, that's like really, really, really impressive. They know where's extra hot on the griddle and not, I mean, that's like, so it's not that that's easy, but like you want over easy eggs to be the same every time. Whereas a chef is like, takes two random flavors and combines them, and then like to form something crazy. And it's like, and he was teaching us as like middle school kids to be chefs, and we weren't good. It's like we weren't good chefs. It's not like we were, making fine meals, but he empowered us. And like the real lesson there was like, no Hitz, no every other kid in that band. It's like, no, you can be a chef. You're not as good at being a chef as me, because I'm like the old age of 23, but like, you can be you are a chef. If you say you're a chef, you're a chef. And that was like, that bled over into everything. I mean, not like I was coming up with my own, equations for math class, but that bled into every single aspect of my life. Was just that like, yeah, I'm a kid, but it just means I haven't been doing it as like, what a gift, right? That's what I keep hearing over and over again, is just like gifts that those of us who have kids, like we would pay any amount of money to have our kids get these kind of gifts, like empowering, like everything. And people without kids would do the same for anybody that they love. And the beautiful thing is we just have to make sure that music education is available to every single kid in this like disgustingly wealthy country. That's it. Every single kid needs to have access to music education. And when the teachers have the equipment, then it's easy to teach the kids, which is easy to then go and do I was going to say dog and pony show, and that makes it sound bad. I don't mean that. I mean, just like, outward facing, right? That's something that Dr. Nickens here understands very well. It's not just how well his band plays, which it plays its ass off, the Green Machine at George Mason University, but it's like, he's integrated into the community, and that's like, and the musical quality has to be there, or else the integration, not that it doesn't happen, but it's not effective, right? But it's like, yeah, it makes music educators' jobs easier. Like the equipment's there, and then they do the magic, and then they show the community the magic, and then they don't have to justify their jobs. They don't have to justify their budgets. It's like, it's literally, they need funding. That's like literally what they need is funding. And so thank you to everybody who is watching this, who has donated even $1 to Mockingbird Foundation or to any of the other, there's some really, really, some other great charities that do some really great work in music education. All right, we got just a few minutes left, but I wanted to give everybody a chance to like and this is something that each of us could talk for 45 minutes easily. But the last question is why you think music education is so important. And so this is going to be a good exercise for all of us to like distill this down to a couple of minutes. Chanell, you're first.
Andrew, yeah, I'll hop in because what you were saying just now, just like, I don't know, I really felt that because it is so much about community, and I feel like, I teach privately, so I don't really understand what it's like to teach a huge band of kids, but I feel strongly that, like, when I'm like with my students, it's about them, and I feel like it's music education for everyone is the reason is because we don't expect everyone to be like in the New York Philharmonic or be like a gig musician. But I think that the life lessons that you learn from music education is huge, So when I'm teaching privately, I'm not only making sure that my kid has foundational skills and he is learning the next piece for where he wants to go and where he wants to progress to, but I'm checking in with him. I'm saying, how are you doing? Are you okay? Like, what's going on? To have another adult that cares about you just as much as a parent, but they aren't your parents, so you could come with them with different things. The first person I ever came out to was my private teacher. I told her the first time, I think I'm gay. What do I do? So it's like, it's so much more for the community than just like, I want to be the best musician ever. It's so much more. So I just want to like kind of piggyback on what you're saying, that music education brings so much more to the table than just like I want to make this kid like a star. So I just want to. We're doing
That-
a lot more work that you know we're doing a lot like we're doing some different work here, you know, with these students. Yeah.
Chanel, I don't want to like come at you here, but it was pretty rude that you didn't go last because nobody's going to have a better answer than you just gave for that question. So you've just like
Well,
set the bar impossibly high. These guys are all going to be banging their heads into it.
well,
So
Andrew, it's your fault because you were talking about the community, and it got me thinking, like, you know, that there's a bigger role. Is all I was saying. You
that's
know.
great. No, it was I could not have summed that up any better. That was awesome. All right, I'll throw Zach under the bus to have to go after that. So Zach, how about you? What's your soundbite for why music education is so important?
Why music education? Because it instills the confidence in kids that they can solve problems that they don't have the answers ready made for. It's just an incredibly empowering thing. So much of music is so abstract, you know, and, you know, the first time you have to sing a harmony note, you know, or, you know, the first time, whatever, you know, the first time you have to play this rhythm and, you know, all of the things that we do, you know, as professional musicians, it's incredible, you know, it's this other language. And when you start doing it, it's not something that you have ever done before, you know? So I think that, you know, I understand why people also in this country lean heavily on all of the non-musical attributes of music in order to kind of, you know, get people frothy about, you know, why music is important. But of course, it's much deeper than that too. It's you know, it's a profound cross-generational, cross-cultural form of expression that, you know, we're the only, well, I guess you could say, you know, the blue whales maybe, but in the way that we make music, and the way that we communicate through it, is one of the most profound human gifts. So, you know, it's not just something to do to get ahead or, you know, to be, you know, to make you feel more confident, which, you know, it will, but in a certain sense that it's everyone's birthright, you know, as a human being. And it's something that we all have the opportunity to be custodians of this birthright. And it couldn't be more important.
Wow. Look at that. He stepped up right after in the huge shadow of Chanel's like bombshell of an answer. And that was good. I try not to say nice things about my friends, but that was super articulate, Zach. All right, Don, how about you?
Well, I'll just I'll go with a teamwork aspect of it. I mean, you know, if especially in a smaller ensemble, but in any ensemble, if the part's not there, the whole is lacking, and you're, you know, yes, it's a responsibility, but it's also an exhilaration when it is there. And there are also, I mean, you know, I dare say I'm the oldest one on this page here right now, but there are pieces that I remember, you know, playing in band in high school that I'll never forget. I mean, you know, I can draw them up anytime inside of me, and there's this joy, you know, and it's totally indescribable to a non-musician. You can't explain that stuff. So it's, but it's real, and it's there for everybody if we'll give them a chance.
Oh, that's awesome. And I'm sure you don't remember that like it was yesterday because it was perfectly in tune, or because it was perfectly balanced, or because it was, you know, the vibrato of the flute solo matched the vibrato of the clarinet. You know, like no, it's just there's just something that like you can experience either as a listener or as the performer or as the composer, that like if you know, you know. And it's available to anybody, whether they have been studying for 20 years or 20 minutes. It's incredible.
And I know I'm robbing from Michael here, but real quick, I just have to say, yeah, so emphatic yes to the music for the non-professional is so important. It adds so much to somebody's life, you know.
Yeah.
Just
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to speak on behalf of the entire Mockingbird Foundation, but like if our grants help to craft somebody who becomes the next, Chanell or Zack or Don, then awesome. But that's not the goal, right? The goal is is for everybody to have, music just be a part of their being. The world needs more art. Maybe you guys haven't noticed, but yeah, the world's a little bit messed up right now. So yeah, we can use the art. So Michael Nickens.
So I want to try and synthesize all this because I think it all comes together on a couple points. One of them is music education is important because education is important. And as many have seen me do, I go around, I don't even ask the question if someone's a musician or not. I just try to find out what kind of musician they are, what's their relationship to music, and how's music in their lives. And every single access point, for instance, with the Green Machine, there's no barrier to entry. You just showing up is the barrier to entry. And one of the things that I think it's like, you know, we don't take a second when we say education and think of like STEM or something like that as it's got the market share, right? It's got the people understand how studying science and technology and engineering and mathematics are an education. And the thing that's so funny is we work so hard even to talk about putting the A in, calling it STEAM, but the reality is the arts is STEM also. It's like we're studying technology, we're studying science, we're studying mathematics, we're studying engineering also. We might have a little bit of a different goal in mind, or maybe we don't. Maybe we don't have a different goal in mind. Maybe it's like the ultimate manifestation of STEM is arts. And it just all depends on how people connect the dots for you and what your own experience is. And if that's sort of a possibility of culmination, you know, the importance of music education, and more importantly, the importance of education, because I don't want to separate the two. It's possible that the reason why we haven't figured out how to make it all work is because we haven't figured out how to make it, how to take the arts. It's like the key to it is an involvement in the arts. It's like, if we can figure out how to make the concert crowd and the party crowd mix together, if we can make the people who, you know, think it's damning to dance on one side and the other people who worship by dancing, if we can get that together, that's the thing that's going to make us understand that it all can fit together. And the carrier wave of sound and, you know, the intention that we can put into a sculpture or a painting or a story, all these different ways, a dance, all these different things. This is how we're going to solve figuring out how we're one people, and how everyone you see is your brother, how everyone sees your sister, how everyone you see is you. And maybe that can happen by getting your math problems right, or maybe it can happen by putting beautiful intent and meaning not only into the art, but then learning how to draw it out of the art, and all the technology, all the science, and all the engineering, all the math that goes into making that possible. So it's something like that.
I love that.
Yeah, that was awesome. See, now I've backed myself into a corner because now everyone has gone after Chanell and done amazing except for me. So there's only one person left who might fall on their face, and it's me. I mean, I think, and these have all been said before, you know, earlier in this discussion, but the fact that it empowers people, right? Especially in school, you know, a lot of school is about compliance, and you know, at least a lot of like structured school is about compliance, and music and the arts just gives us the opportunity to express ourselves and gives us permission to express ourselves. And I'm not talking about in a career sense. Like I was talking with Zack about the map and the violin thing. That was specifically talking about like a, you know, career in violin. Here's the map. But there are so many maps that we're given as kids. It's like, you can do this and then you do this and then you do this. No, you can't do that, or you can't do that yet, or whatever. And when you grab a pair of sticks and start banging on stuff in time, or when you like are singing with a gospel choir, or when you're, buzzing your lips into a tuba for the first time, there's just, it's not that there's no structure at all, but there's just like, it's like the map is just wide open, not to like beat that, analogy into the ground, but it's wide open. And that was so eye-opening to me. And I also, like Zach said, I don't like it when we really stress like we need band and orchestra and choir in school because it raises test scores. Like, I mean, when you market, you got to speak the language of the people you're marketing to. And if you're justifying your job, I'm not being critical of anybody who's literally just trying to justify that their position either exists or stays full time that uses that. But it's like, just the whole discovery of sounds and of art and of your own opinions and of working with others. And as I think it was Don said earlier, we're like relying on people and like, you let people down. You don't like, it's like empowering others, as Michael talked about. It's just all like there's this beautiful synthesis of all of that, which is music. And then, it gives you like goosebumps on top of it, So, yeah, this is awesome. I'm going to compliment myself for selecting such an awesome panel. So, and it's just like, I have amazing friends. I have been, as everybody in this call will nod along, like we've all just been really spoiled with who we've gotten to work with in this business. And what I gave you guys the questions we were going to talk about, like what, a full hour ago? Like, so like, like I was like, I should email it. It still counts if it's like 60 minutes ahead of time. Right. But I knew that this specific collection of people was gonna, like we come from very different backgrounds. We do very different things within the business. And yet, as you just heard, there's like, it almost sounded like some of those answers, like we kind of spent a few hours like hashing it out, right? Okay, let's all hit on teamwork. Let's all hit, it's like, and we didn't. It's just so much commonality in the approach of, of artists, and especially the people who are really lucky to do this thing for a living, which all of us are. So, all right. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Chanell. Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Joe, who was on earlier. And thank all of you for tuning in to the Mockingbird Sessions. If you would like to learn more about Mockingbird, you can go to mbird.org. And if you happen to click on donate and happen to fork over your PayPal credentials, like that, you don't fork them over. You don't like give us the keys. You just, if you want to make a donation, one thing, if you'd like, you can set like a $5 monthly donation, which is, I'm like allergic to monthly, like subscriptions because I've got so many of them, but $5, you don't even notice it's gone. And I know that's only $60 a year, but like, 10 people do that, 100 people do that. And that's like a couple of, of grants for high schools or middle schools where suddenly they're buying like multiple clarinets with that. I mean, it's a minor amount, but it all helps. And if you're not able to give now, but you're just supporting us in other ways, thank you so much. And thank you all for your time. And that is going to do it for